And it's a model created by um, one of my coaches, Jamie Smart. And he's great. I love what Jamie, he creates models. I like models, being an engineer. Models aren't necessarily true, they're just a model useful to understand an aspect of life. So it's you could argue, if everyone knows about consultants, it's a very common consultants two by two. So on the left hand side, on the kind of, I guess, the y-axis, you have state of mind within clarity or superstitious thinking. And then the bottom of the x-axis, we have whether we're in a passive state or active state. Let's start the left-hand side, the thinking state for a moment. So what do I mean by superstitious thinking? So it's a funny word to use, superstitious, but I mean, the dictionary definition of superstitious is believing in something that's not true, basically. So superstitious thinking is, in this context, is believing your experience is coming from somewhere other than thought. So it's believing your experience is coming from somewhere other than thought. If we think we're living the experience of our circumstances, we're looking in the wrong place for answers, and it generally leads to a busier mind. It generally leads to a lot of thinking, trying to think our way back to clarity, think our way to solutions. Because we have a misunderstanding what's creating our experience with us. We look in the wrong place for the answer. So some from common superstitious thinking patterns, maybe I'll be okay when, or I'll be okay if. So that's what I mean by superstitious thinking, which generally leads to a busier mind. And clarity is when we realize where experience is coming from. We're living what I call more inside out. We're more connected to our true self, our whole self, our insight, our intuition. We're in a state of flow, basically, state of quiet mind. Yeah, it's called a quiet mind. So superstitious thinking obviously is a busy mind, and clarity is only a quiet mind, which is a sense of presence, state of being. And then passive is what it says, we're just being, we're not actually doing anything. Active is actually taking action in life. So the bottom left-hand corner, let's look at that rumination. So that's with stewing, worry, obsessing. I got a degree in rumination. I was well versed in rumination. I can slip into that space. Everyone can from time to time. But that was, I thought, to be honest, at the time, I thought it was my superpower. I thought my ability to really, not worry or obsess, that was a byproduct, but to think, to really think things through was my superpower. But actually, what I was doing was worrying. I was worrying. It was fueled by fear. And I thought I could predict the future. I thought I was my wisdom. I thought I was very intuitive and wise, but I wasn't. I was just a worrier and thought a lot. Now, maybe I could solve problems. Maybe I had a bit of an engineer's brain, but it was fueled by fear and they lived in my head. It was very much was worry, basically, was worry. And I thought it was a good thing. I thought it was my superpower because I could solve problems. But actually, it just led to, yeah, a lot of worry, a lot of unnecessary thoughts, a lot of disconnection from life, never being in flow, not really being happy, and just flatlining through life. I didn't really have any strong emotions. I was living in my head. Um, and it was a protection mechanism. I learned from a very young age how to work out who I needed to be okay, to be acceptable, to be loved, to be liked, to avoid judgment, initially from my mum, and then I just assumed other people would judge me in the same way. And actually, I thought the energy of life would judge us as well, because I was brought up in a very Anglo-Catholic environment. And when you're young, we often project our experience of our parents onto life as a whole, whatever light energy of life is, whatever God is for you, Mother Nature, the divine. And my mum was very judgmental, high expectations, and I just thought this energy of life was judgmental as well. So I was constantly living in my head, work out who I needed to be or what I needed to do to avoid judgment. So I ruminated a lot. I worried a lot. Um, the next kind of top left, reflection. Now, given I was always living in my head, having a busy mind, I didn't realize I had a busy mind. I thought I had a good mind. I thought, I was living in my experience was caused by my circumstances, and my state of mind was justified by my circumstances. I very much felt like a victim in life. And I never realized how I struggled with reflection or contemplation, meditation. I grew up in quite, say, Christian environment. I used to be heavily involved in the church, and they wouldn't do meditation, but do kind of silent prayer, basically meditation, basically. Um, and I'd sit there going, "Oh, nothing." And people have these kind of spiritual experiences. Me, nothing, every single time. And I never got it. And it was just another reason for me, oh, I'm abandoned by God, a victim. It just fueled my stories. And then I came across meditation by a friend whose her life was basically saved by meditation. And I read this book on meditation and realized, I've got a busy mind. That's why nothing can get in. I had such a really busy mind. My first awareness, I just had this really, really busy mind. And I start to notice the flavor of my thinking. And I was, yeah, it's fear, it's insecurity, it's worry. And I started to realize, yeah, maybe I am a bit of a worrier. Maybe this busy mind is not so helpful. And over time, I think through really understanding the nature of thought and not paying it so much attention, I began to slow my mind down, and not slow my mind down because our mind slows down automatically. I stopped interfering with the self kind of healing mechanism of our mind. Our mind is like a snow globe. Yes, we get triggered at times, but it settles all on its own. A bit like a toddler can have a tantrum, does nothing about it. It calms down. It's soon forgotten without any intervention. When we get a busy mind, when we get triggered, we temptation is to try and think our way to clarity, to work out what the cause is, how do I fix this? And we're putting more energy into it rather than realizing, okay, I've got a busy mind right now, or I'm triggered right now, I'm feeling angry right now, or stressed right now, and just allowing it and just surfing it, knowing it's just our state of mind. Nothing needs to happen. And we go back into a reflective state automatically. It's actually our default setting. That state of being, reflection, or inspiration, those top two are actually our default settings when we stop here interfering with the system. Uninspired actions, that's just showing up, staying in the game, just taking action. We don't feel inspired. I've got a friend who's a writer, and he says he has to write as if it's a job. So 9 o'clock or 9:30 in the morning, he sits at his desk, he writes. That's his job. But he says if he feels inspired, he'll write new content. If he doesn't, he'll edit stuff he's written already. He just has to show up, stay in the game, even if it's not inspired. And it reminds me of my running. I just have to follow a program because I don't feel inspired to go for a run. I just have to show up and do it, and I see the progress. It's about staying in the game. It's about making the choices we want to do the things we want, even if we don't feel like it. If you're waiting to feel inspired, we could be waiting a long time. It's a bit like people who wait to feel confident before they do something. Well, confidence is a feeling you got having done something. If you're waiting for the right state of mind, the feeling, we could be waiting a long time. And sometimes they're just honoring, I guess it's like commitment to ourselves. It's making a commitment to ourselves, our true soul, what we really want, and taking those actions despite how we feel, knowing deep down this is what we want, and honoring our soul in that way. So just showing up, staying in the game, even if we don't feel inspired. And of course, top right is the ideal place, inspiration, that state of flow, being in the zone, where ideas come easy and where creativity comes. That's a lovely place to be. We're not all there all the time. But we're going to look at how can we be there more frequently? How do we get from rumination to inspiration? Now, in my experience, though, it's very hard to go from rumination to inspiration. In my experience, generally we have to go around one way or the other, or even goes like that. It's you've got to take some action first. You've got to either just stop and be. So from rumination to reflection, I once had a coach said, "How would it be if I can help you achieve more by doing less?" I said, "You're talking my language. Great. How do we do this?" He said, "Those times when you got half an hour and you've got those four things in your mind you want to get done, just stop and do nothing. 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes. Your brain, your busy mind say, I haven't got time for this. But if you stop and do nothing and be, and just let your mind settle and calm, you'll approach those things with a different mindset. You may find one doesn't even need doing. You may do it in a different way. You find you create time by slowing down. And it's your busy mind says, I haven't got time for this. I haven't got time for this. It really is that slowing down to speed up. So making that conscious moment choice to spend some time in reflection. Or maybe rumination is just taking action. It's just taking action. One of the things I like is if there's a thing you're putting off, you don't feel inspired to do it, but deep down you want to do it, just set a timer for 2 minutes. Just 2 minutes and do it for 2 minutes. And what you find is after those 2 minutes, if you can carry on, you've got time to carry on, you'll generally want to carry on because your thinking about it has changed. Or if you haven't got time, you put it down. Next time you think about it, you think about it in a very different way. You come back to it far more easily because the uninspired state of mind is a busy mind. It's our thinking about it puts it off, not at the actual it. So we take some action, we get over the thinking hump, and we start doing it. It doesn't feel as bad as we thought it'd be. So it's taking that step, either just stop being slowing down or just taking uninspired action. Just take uninspired action. And those can be the gateways into inspiration. And one of the things is when we're caught into our busy mind, we can't see the wood through the trees, which is why when you talk to someone else and you can help them with their problem far easier, we help ourselves with our own problems. Because in our own mind, it's very subjective. When you're talking to someone else, it's very objective. When in our own stuff, we can't see the wood from a tree, it's very subjective. And we listen to someone else's stuff, it's very much objective. So we can do a little experiment now, a little exercise.